Welcome back. Beautiful afternoon here in Laguna Seca, looking high above the corkscrews. We get ready for our next group. This is Group 2, the Briggs Cunningham Trophy. And again, we celebrate Briggs Cunningham, another great driver from American history. And we also celebrate this group, which is front-engine GT sports car races and American specials. And therefore spanning from 1947 to 1960. And Briggs Cunningham, fascinating character, owned and raced Jaguars, Ferraris, Corvettes, Listers, you name it. And also known for constructing and fielding teams in the 50s with Cadillac and Chrysler and Hemi-powered Cunninghams. So the Cunningham name very much synonymous with American racing. He was also a pretty fine yachtsman too, and skippered the America's entry into the 1958 America's Cup. So a man of many talents indeed, but Briggs Cunningham, a name that is synonymous with the evolution of motor racing here in the USA. And we've got some really nice cars out here. Some Parkinson Jaguar specials. We've got Mike Fulmer out here in a Lotus 11. We've got some Mr. Knobbly, Warrior Bristol, and that's a one-off. Jack Perkins driving that. Devon's out there in Kelowna. And yeah, some really beautiful cars. And as we say, it's an amalgamation, if you will, of front-engine GT cars, sport car races, and American specials. And when we say American specials, we kind of look at how the Americans got hold of these European cars in the first place and sort of did their own thing with them, made them into specials. Poopers, Porsche Coopers, combining those two. So you've got some interesting names. Got an AMT Piranha out there from 1960. Sadler Mayer special from 1959. And the Jaguar XK120 that sort of made its name here on the West Coast at the beginning. And won the opening races at Pebble Beach with the likes of Phil Hill, Stirling Moss coming here and racing at Laguna, in fact, in one of those. And so some great history. And just seeing if my good friend James Alder made the grid, because he usually does the traditional make it across the hills from Nevada, drives the race car as it was in the day. Beautiful sand, still under the pace car. And we're led away by Mark Hamilton Peters in a Rejo Mark 6 from 1959. Mark Osborne was due to drive, and the pole position, I'm not sure if Mark actually drove the car yesterday, but it wasn't Mark, it's not Mark Osborne at the wheel right now, it's Mark Hamilton Peters. I got handed a note earlier in the day to let me know that was the case, and I'm glad he did, because I'd have been calling him the other name. It's hard when the helmets are on and cars are out there and you've got your list of who. But a good, strong field. 35 cars again in this group. This is Group 2, Briggs S. Cunningham Trophy Grid. Their first race of the weekend. It's going to be busy out there with 35 cars and all with varying degrees of both skill and displacement. Got a Curtis Special SR100 out there. A Sorrel Curtis Special from 1955. Ferrari 250 GTS WB from 61. And a Baldwin Mercury Special from 1949. Steve Sannett racing that. So getting up to speed here. That's the number 60. Excuse me, number 6. The Lister Knobbly, Al Serio, and that has raced here at the reunion back in 2010. So it's a well-known facet. I love that shot. You can only do that with a drone. You get the movement, the speed, and the distance and height that we are above Monterey, looking down to the bay. And as they all drop off the lip, looking for that oak tree, as we heard earlier, that was the important thing. Head to the oak tree, they said. And of course, you've got to find it first. Yeah, James Alder is in the number 33 Jaguar XK120 OTS. And he is a regular here at the Monterey Peninsula and has been racing some, I don't know, 30 or so years. And like I said, he drives the actual car across the hills. And he's a real character. I'm sure we'll have him in here. It's hard to keep him out sometimes. But James Alder is definitely one of the great characters of historic racing here in the USA. So here we go. Group 2 about to get underway. Our Briggs Cunningham Trophy grid. 35 cars in all. Let's hope they all make it. And away they go. And they tend to just give each other a little room through the first 2 corners here at Andretti. And then into turn 3 and 4, and then they open them up a little bit more. So a nice shot of Nick Flona in the Devon SS from 1958, that all bright red, number 9. Beautiful car. And it was once awarded at Rolex for the overall excellence in this car. So it's got a storied history just at this event alone. And this is one of the original Devon 15 Devon SS race cars with the tubular frame. As we look back now at 61, through your shot now, that is Edward Nigro in the Lola Mark 1 from 1959. And behind him, the 84, the Sadler Mark 4 from 1959, and Greg Mayer at the wheel. And already starting to get some racing on, and also starting to spread the field out nicely as they head towards the corkscrew again. Dropping down, Mark Hamilton-Peters leading the way and pulling away at the front. It's going to be interesting to see how he plays this, because he's going to get into traffic before the end of this Group 1 race, I'm pretty sure. And of course, Jensen Button in the 1952 Jaguar C-Type, raced originally by Juan Manuel Fangio. And you can understand why that is a special car, and even a world champion from Formula One with a huge career behind him and in front of him, I may add. He's still racing at the top level. And he's done a bit of extreme racing. He's done a bit of NASCAR racing as Jensen. And obviously now turning his hand to a full season of world endurance with the USAA Porsche team. So still at the high end, and he was describing his run at Le Mans as being one of the hardest races he's ever done with the rain and so on. As we take a look at Robert Davis in that 1960 Lola Mark 1, and then the number 9, that's again the Devon SS of Nick Flona. And Button currently in 8th position. Flona just behind him in 9th. Davis in 10th position. I remember first meeting Jensen Button as a Formula 3 driver at Macau. And back then, he had just kind of missed out on having to get his way and make his way into Formula 1. He got an instant run with a test drive with Williams, and he never looked back after that, and Macau was just the icing on the cake. But the organizers offered the opportunity to win big money if you could win races in both Macau and Korea, because back then the sort of world final was split over 2 races at Macau, 2 races at the Grand Prix of South Korea. And Jensen, along with many other of his brethren from that era, did all 4 races. And I distinctly remember watching Jensen put the car through its paces, and we all knew back then that he was headed towards Formula 1, and he certainly put on a show that proved it. And here is Jensen Button. Jaguar C-Type, and of course we call the 120 the E-Type. Well, well known for his deft touch at the wheel, but this is probably twice the size of his old Formula One wheel. And look at him. Oh, he's loving it. But he's trying to push on, isn't he? But I'd love to just stay on his hands for a while, because he's definitely enjoying fighting that car. And that's what historic racing's all about. It's a real challenge. And just throw away all the gadgets and learn what real racing's all about. And I think it must give him an admiration for someone like Fangio to see what they had to deal with these, frankly, recalcitrant Jaguars back in the day. And great to see him enjoying historic racing. Spends a lot of time here on the West Coast. He's got a house out here, and even though he's traveling around the world with Sky, doing Formula One coverage, he still gets a chance to come and do some of this, which is great. Saw Alex McAllister, excuse me, in that 1955 D-Type, coming through shot briefly. McAllister has had a busy day. He's been in about 3 races and currently running in 7th in this one, as Peters continues to lead. That's Mark Hamilton Peters replacing Mark Osborne, and in the pole position, 1959 Rayhome Mark 6th. First glimpse of Robert Davis in a Lola Mark 1A from 1960. Here he comes. Under the bridge. Pretty little thing, isn't it? Love the yellow wheels. The line on this car says probably built in 1960-61. So it is down as a 1960 Lola Mark 1A, but Salter Grant Clark, the original owner, from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, in 1962. Raced the car when new in Canada and the USA, as well as racing at Motorsport and Mont Tremblant in Canada. And this car won at Sebring, Watkins Glen, Mid-Ohio, Road Atlanta, Savannah, and Lime Rock Park. So, very storied history indeed. Beautiful car still, absolutely immaculate. Davis currently running in 9th, just behind Jensen Button. You've got a feeling you'd want to overtake Jensen just once, so you could say, yeah, I overtook the world champ. I was hoping Jensen might pop out when we had McLaren festivities all of last year around the world, and of course Zach Brown playing a big part in that. But I think Jensen was busy running around doing Formula One at the time. One of his championship cars were here. Well, I say Formula One championship cars, not the championship car. One for Braun. One of the McLarens he entered in. Didn't win the title in that one. But a great career for Jensen Button. And just like so many greats, now giving back in many ways, doing broadcasting and giving his time and enjoying it, I think. He's a great pundit. You watch the Formula One here in the States, working with Sky, and just getting an insight into what the driver's mind is all about. And we've been very blessed here to get the likes of Nico Rosberg, and Jensen Button, Karen Chandok, Anthony Davidson, and guys from different eras, but all with some fantastic knowledge, obviously, of what this sport is all about. Through goes the 24th, the leader of the race. That's Peters, wheeling that hard and extending his lead, putting in some handy times too in this Briggs Cunningham Trophy race 1, and pulling away at the front. He's got just a 4-second lead at the moment here in our Group 2. Now this, it's actually, well, it says in mine a Mark 4 actually. Climax Special, the Rio Climax Special, one of 2 cars, total production of 12, built to FIA regs, and the original owner, John O'Sullivan, raced it continuously from 1959, including the 1961 Guards Trophy race at Brands Hatch. So it's had a busy time, and it's one of a dozen Mark IVs. It is a Mark IV, not 6. Designed and built by Rod Easterling in the early 16. And definitely has a great history, and it's adding to that today. Evidently, Colin Chapman offered Easterling a job as a designer. And of course, it was designed to race against the likes of the Lotus 11. First glimpse of the 84. No, sorry, we've seen the 84. That's Greg Meyer in the Sadler Mark IV. Beautiful car. I've been up close to that one too over the years. And that one running currently in second place to this man. He really does drop down the hill quickly. And for some, like James Alder, who I'm looking at down in the middle of that group there, this is just a fun time. He won't be taking it too hard. He just likes to preserve that car. He always has some sort of gremlin go wrong with it at the weekend, but if you're going to drive the car a few hundred miles over the mountains of Nevada and then down to Laguna, then you're always risking it a little bit. But he has fun along the way. And Meyer trying to get on level terms with our leader, but I think that's going to be a tough ask this afternoon. Edward Negro has come down to, fourth position now. He started in second, so he had a front row start. David Swig now up to third position in the number 16. The Scarab Mark 1. That just looks so much fun, doesn't it? And as the laps tick down, we're 5 laps in, and some of the midfield starting to put their best laps in of the race. Everybody getting the tyres up to temp, and now it's a bit more spread out. People can concentrate on just zoning in on their own lap times rather than racing necessarily. The guys at the front are already catching. McAllister up to 7th now. As we take a look at the 63 of John Mott Jr. and the Allard K2. Seems somewhat pedestrian compared to some of the other cars out there, but absolutely glorious. And we've also got a man who been running for president. I don't know if he still is. Lars Mamstead in the XK120 from 1952. Lars, a local here in California, running for the libertarian entry into being the president of the United States. Well, it's a tough competition. I remember meeting Lars a few years ago, and he is a long member of the fraternity of historic racing here. Ned Spiker, likewise, he's got the Ferrari 250 GTS. And Bill Rookledge, another one in the 52 Jaguar. We've got a lot of XK120s out there this weekend. And like I said, very much one of the formative cars of racing here on the West Coast. That's David Swig in that Scarab Mark 1, pushing hard. Yeah, I mentioned James Alder in that 52 Jaguar. There are several out there, but approximately 160 race weekends starting in March 1982. I said he's been around, and bases himself in Reno. And like I said, knows everybody in the paddock, often comes on the booth in these sorts of events. Let's go back to the 16. Now that Scarab did major events in 1958, including Palm Springs, excuse me, Santa Barbara, Riverside, Thompson, Meadowdale, and Laguna here, and Nassau, the Bahamas. Of course, back in the day, the Nassau races became a big deal. Great to see the paddock so packed as well. Over 500 cars entered, and it's a far fetch from where we all started out with some 60-plus cars back in 1974. And what an event, what growth it's had. And I think the icing on the cake was the passing of the keys earlier this weekend, which we've heard about, cementing the future of this sort of racing here and many other forms of racing. John Doonan is hopefully going to come and join me, but the head of IMSA here, the CEO of IMSA here this weekend, and IMSA, of course, raced here, IndyCar and Trans Am. Whee! Bit of a moment for the 61, but he grabs it. A little bit out of shape, but grabs the 59 Lola by the neck and makes sure it stays in the straight line. Currently in fourth position, just ahead of Brian McKieran. That car was sold to Alan Ross, and in 1960, Ross displayed it at the 61 British Racing and Sports Car Club racing car show before it was shipped to the USA. And when it got to North America in 61, did the 12 hours of Sebring, driven by Chuck Hall, brother of Jim Hall, of Chaparral fame. And we had Jim Hall Jr. in here, and then Alan Ross finishing second in class. Also participated in SCCA modified racing competition with Doc Wiley from 61 to 66. And has been part of the Monterey reunion for many years. White flag out then for the 61 and the rest of the field. So another great history to that car, as crossing the line for his last lap is the 42 of Brian McKieran in that vintage car, which has raced for the last 42 years in a row. That 1956 Lotus 11 Le Mans, which just passed by a moment ago. Last lap then of our Briggs Cunningham Trophy first race, Group 2, and it's been pretty much an easy run for the poleman, the 24 of Mark Hamilton Peters in that Reho number 24 car, Mark 4, and he comes to the last corner and out of the last corner and towards the checkered flag, and there it is, and he takes it by, well, quite some gap. We reckon Greg Mayer coming across the line, just under 4 seconds behind him. Nice roar as he goes across the line. So Mark Hamilton Peters then with a nice easy run to start off the weekend. Congratulations, winner of the Briggs Cunningham Trophy race. Second place going to Greg Mayer, and third place to David Sweet. Negro in fourth place, Brian McKieran just getting past Negro in the last moments there to go into fourth place, and Al Asirio in sixth ahead of Alex McAllister. Let's head down to Kev Harris for the latest in the paddock.